plan, took off to see The Force Awakens, and of course after that we went to see Rogue One, and we were just excited. Matter of fact, some of my first videos were about Rogue One fan response. It was a lot of fun, and it was like the first video that I ever made that got over 1,000 views or something like that, and so it was really an exciting time. Back in 2015, we hadn't had a Star Wars movie in a very long time, and it was the age of social media, and everybody was excited about the new Star Wars movie. I mean, it was fun, and sure, it was a rehashing of Star Wars. I mean, it was really just a rehashed plot, but it was kind of a beautiful movie, and a lot of people had a good time watching their old favorite characters come back to life on the screen. And that all came to a crashing end with The Last Jedi. When they say it divided fans, that's misleading. It's not that fans were divided, they just didn't like it. I mean, you've got a minority of people that like it, you've got some people who just love Star Wars, and if you mix those two groups into a blender and you get a pretty sizable portion that maybe didn't like it, but by and large, Star Wars fans, they just didn't like it. This trilogy is more important than people realize, and it has less to do with Star Wars and more to do with the political discourse of our time. This is not a political channel, and I mean, goodness, it's not a political channel. And this channel is not really at all a movie channel. Hey Juan, what's good to see you. However, I think sometimes it's important to weigh in on certain issues just because we're Americans and it's important to talk about things sometimes. And in this case, the last Star Wars movie, which was the second one in the trilogy, The Last Jedi, when they say it divided fans, that is really an understatement. It did not divide fans. It more or less, there was a splinter group that liked Rian Johnson's decisions in that movie, but a lot of people said that it was very political. In other words, when you're watching the movie, you're getting cultural messages of today's culture more than you're getting a good story. It's true that if you watch Star Wars, if you love Star Wars the way I love Star Wars, then you know that there are messages that Lucas was trying to tell in the original trilogy, and in the prequels for that matter. But what happened with The Rise of Skywalker was a little different. You got the people who talk about the politics of The Last Jedi, and you got the people who talk about this and that and the other, and I'm not even going to weigh in on all that. All I'm saying is that it wasn't that great of a movie. That's just the bottom line. It made people uncomfortable. It didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. It felt more like a political or a cultural message dressed in Star Wars. Rian Johnson basically threw out the first movie of that trilogy. But I feel bad for Rian Johnson because Rian Johnson was trying to do something different, and Disney was like, go Rian, you do something different. Be different, yeah, subvert expectations and stuff. So Rian went out there and he did it. He went for it, trying to be different. Bad. It was bad. It was really, yeah. And a lot of people, including myself, felt like Rian Johnson had almost intentionally punished the audience for liking J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens. And we walked out tonight of The Rise of Skywalker, and Carolyn and I absolutely loved it. It was phenomenal. And what we wanted to talk about, we have to drive an hour to get to an IMAX because there's no IMAX here in Harrisonburg, and we like IMAX movies. But we love this movie primarily because of the efforts of J.J. Abrams to rebuild this trilogy. They talk about the fans of Star Wars being toxic, or the toxic Star Wars fans. You gotta have a toxic movie in order to have toxic fans. Okay, maybe not. I don't know. The bottom line is that there have been a lot of people that have made a lot of money on YouTube channels just bashing Star Wars, and I'm not one of those guys. I mean, look, Rian Johnson put his story on the screen. Disney believed in Rian Johnson, so you get The Last Jedi. Okay, I didn't like it. A lot of other people liked it. You move on. You move on to this movie, The Rise of Skywalker. There's only one problem, and this is where people like me get a little frustrated. I've grown up with Star Wars. It came out in 1977, and there's certain things that we've been led to believe in the Star Wars saga, like one movie is important to the next movie. And what happened in The Last Jedi is that, well, the villain is killed, and all kinds of bad things happen to some really good people. No, I'm kidding. All kinds of bad things happen that almost like destroy the whole franchise. It's not necessarily that the movie is that bad. It's that it sort of concluded the things that J.J. Abrams had going on in The Last Jedi. The things that we were told that were important, they're not important anymore. So when J.J. Abrams was called back in to do The Rise of Skywalker, he sort of had to ignore The Last Jedi.
Some of you are probably thinking right now, what does it matter? Well, you know, it's just a movie. In fact, there's probably a couple of you that have either thought about it or you're doing it right now, putting in the comments, what does it matter? It's just a movie. And maybe even you're thumbs downing this video because you're like, why are you even talking about this? Stick to the mountains, Bill. Well, here's the thing, because a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, what they're really mad about are politics that have been kind of infused into the movie, that it's more political and that it's making a certain stand and this and that. And then of course, if you don't agree with that political stance, then people who are for The Last Jedi, they're kind of against you because you're not woke or whatever. The reality of it is most movies have political messages. Star Wars has always had political messages, whether you like it or not. Does it seem a little overt and over the top? Yeah, it does. Is it offensive to me? No, I just thought it was a bad movie. For a lot of people, it was really odd that Disney and Rian Johnson, or The Last Jedi, would throw out this amazing blueprint that had been extremely successful in The Force Awakens, and instead emphasize major cultural issues that are going on currently in the US and infuse those into a Star Wars movie and not worry about profit, not worry about fans, not worry about any of those things. I mean, who in their right mind would think that people would want to go see a Star Wars movie full of cultural tie-ins and cultural references? I mean, it's kind of like going to your favorite YouTube channel and expecting one thing and getting something else. If it was me, and I had to make the second Star Wars movie after J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens, I would have just totally done what J.J. did, rehash old plots. I would have. I would have been like, there's no sense in fixing something that isn't broken. Just do what J.J. did and play it safe. But he didn't. So you gotta hand it to the guy. He went for it. Doesn't mean I like the movie. I really don't like The Last Jedi. It's terrible. Think about it this way. A corporation as large as Disney, and of course a great director, a very creative director, threw out what they knew would be successful to make sure that they got their cultural and political viewpoints across in film. There was a lot of money at stake, and sure, that movie made money, but it's really hurt the franchise. Some people say that history will be kind to Disney and Rian Johnson, Lucasfilm, that it'll be kind when it comes to The Last Jedi. Maybe that's true. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, think about it. Toy sales plummeted after The Last Jedi. Star Wars has never been just a movie. However, in this situation, it really is more than just a movie. It's a reflection of our society right now.
We ran into some people and talked to them at the theater. When we would engage conversation or the discussion, what amazed me is that they were defensive when we started talking about it. They were defensive, as if they had their hands up ready to fight over the issue of why they liked Rian Johnson's movie versus J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens or this movie. I believe that has really spilled over from the political divisions of our time. And again, our channel is not normally like this. I mean, our channel, we want to motivate you. We want you guys to love life. I mean, that's why we do our videos, is for people to get out there and see things maybe they don't get to see, or to motivate somebody else to get out and see things.
I'd love to sit down with Rian Johnson. Ryan, if you're watching, because I know you watch my videos, Ryan. I know you do. You and JJ sit around and think, well, how was Bill Marion videoing these mountains, and that's how we're going to do our space scenes? That's what you guys are doing. You're taking notes from my videos, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. I would watch my videos for the shaky cam. Carol and I are movie snobs, which means we will only go to the movies if it's like an IMAX. It's because I don't want to waste my money watching it on just a large screen. So we're going to the IMAX. Are we seeing it in 3D or just regular? We love The Force Awakens so much that we saw it on several different types of screen, not just IMAX, but the other brands of screens around Tennessee. We went to Nashville to see it on a screen, Knoxville to see it on a different screen, and of course we saw it on 2 different screens in Chattanooga because it was a beautiful movie. I've heard that this movie is beautiful, but we'll see. Because of the success of the Rogue One fans response video, when the Rise of Skywalker came out, I ran out there to the theater on opening night with my little camera here that I'm using to this day, same camera, same phone, and was interviewing people as they came out of the Rise of Skywalker, and it was a completely different response. In fact, 80% of the people or more didn't like it. Now, on camera, I only put a mixed reaction. I did that on purpose because I wanted the video to be positive. in retrospect, I shouldn't have done that. Of course, I'd have apologized to that in live streams and other things where I've said, hey, you know what? It was not an objective video as far as a response. I just wasn't expecting people to come out of the theater not liking a Star Wars movie. I mean, since when does that happen? The truth is that no, from night one at the theater, I witnessed it. Most of the people that came out of the theater did not like The Last Jedi. In fact, they hated it. Most of them. There were a few people that came out saying it was the best Star Wars movie ever. But that's not a divide. When I think of divide, I think of, 50-50, 40-60. That's not what this is. This is like 80% of the people hate it and a few people are like, eh. And then about 10% are like, it's the greatest movie ever. That's the breakdown I'm getting around me. And I know some people. I know a few people. But we did get to go tonight to the 6 o'clock showing. Oddly enough, they weren't anticipating the crowds during the daytime, at least not here, not there in Charlottesville, so they didn't have daytime showings today, but they did tonight. So it was just an interesting thing, and I would love to hear your comments, either here in the live stream. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the Rise of Skywalker. I did a commentary on The Last Jedi a few years ago when I was sort of trying out talking about movies on this channel, and it didn't go over real well, so I quit doing that. Plus, there were so many people online that are better than I am at that, so I'd let them do it. But if I'm stirred up pretty good about a movie, not because maybe it's so good, but because like tonight, the conversation that it starts, then, I'm going to talk to you guys about it because it's something to discuss. It is a division within society that it's just really, really interesting. It's almost as if politics has entered into entertainment in such a way that it has divided the fans the same way people politically are divided. And here's what's funny about that is that it would be one thing if there was an age issue here, like young people felt one way, older people felt another, and we could classify people along those lines. That's not what's happening. Younger people seem to kind of agree with what Carol and I are saying, that, hey, J.J. Abrams is doing the best that he can with what Rian Johnson did to The Last Jedi, that J.J. was trying to recover, and it's the best movie it could be. And like I said, Carol and I loved it. We walked out of there going, wow, J.J. did it. It's not that it saved the trilogy, because Rian Johnson really did make a mess there. And I want to say this as a little disclaimer about Rian Johnson, though, just a little disclaimer. He is a creative talent. He is brilliant. He made the movie his own. He gambled and he lost. But if you look at Rian Johnson's other films, they're really, really good. Rian Johnson's a great creator. I just think he made bad decisions with The Last Jedi that conflicted with the majority of the fan base. There's one thing if you say nobody, it's better that everybody's talking about it than nobody's talking about it, but this is more like that part in Shrek where they're saying, grab the pitchforks, burn the house down. It's sort of that type of frustration and anger. So there are YouTubers that have really made a fortune on bashing this last movie, and so they are invested into this movie failing, and I don't think that's fair. Let's go to the comments real quick here. Juan Thomas says, Merry Christmas to everyone. Merry Christmas to everyone as well. I may not hear from you during the holidays. Remember, Jesus is the reason for the season. Yes, he is, Juan. We're going to do a video here in the next few days that talks about Christmas and the reason for Christmas and the birth of Christ. I am definitely a Christian, 100%, a Christian pastor, and we believe in the Immaculate Conception of Jesus Christ, that he was born of a virgin, and that he lived on this earth, and he performed miracles, and then he was crucified. They killed him for nothing. But that's not where the story ends. The story ends is that he rose from the grave, and he conquered sin, and he conquered death, and that by believing in him, we might be saved. And that's what we believe as Christians, and so that's what we believe on here. Now, we talk about everything on here, but never forget, man, we proclaim Jesus Christ as our Savior. The fans, not alt-right people, I know CNN blamed Russian bots, which I can't even fathom how you could be so silly, but people that are even on the left really hated the Last Jedi. They couldn't stand it. And so you had this nastiness for 2 years of people saying we don't want, even if they agreed with the agenda, they didn't want it preached to them in a Star Wars movie, and I totally agree. It's just supposed to be a Western in space. But this movie that came out, man, JJ was handed a soup sandwich, really, to deal with after The Last Jedi. What irritated middle-aged guys like myself, and just to be honest, what irritated people like my wife, Carolyn, is that if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you were kind of labeled as a misogynist, you weren't woke, or you were just an old person clinging on to the past. And that I found so totally offensive, and here's why. First of all, we love the idea of Rey as the hero of the story. Daisy Ridley is amazing. Carolyn and I love watching Daisy Ridley on the screen. She lights it up. And I don't remember all their names, so please forgive me, but you know, the Finn character, Poe Dameron character, all those guys were great. And we wanted to see their characters developed. And we wanted to see more of them. And really just kind of earn their place in the Star Wars lore and legends. Here's what we've never watched at home, and that's The Last Jedi. Not one time have we ever sat around and said, hey, let's watch The Last Jedi. I mean, I see it there on Netflix, but I don't watch it. I mean, it's the slowest car chase in history. I mean, these spaceships have like light speed, and they're in a car chase going really slow.
J.J. Abrams does a great job at emulating other really known directions, but feel his stories lack depth. Amongst the best in picking up style, sense of Spielberg, Lucas, etc. And then it says, not so sure beyond. Listen, I think you're 100% right. Yes, he does a great job at taking somebody else's property and making it better. I call him, nobody usually gets this, and I don't think it's going to catch on. He's like a movie flipper instead of a house flipper. You know, people that flip houses, you know, they dress them up and then resell them. He's a movie flipper. You know, he takes a concept and then resells it. So I agree with you. I totally do. But I guess what I'm trying to say is in this case and in the first Star Trek reboot, I found phenomenal. I thought it was great. I mean, it's hard to take a property like these, okay? It's really hard to take a property, make it your own while saluting the fans and the things that come before you. That's a skill. I mean, that's tough. And he did it in Star Trek. I think he did it in Force Awakens. And I think, considering what Rian Johnson handed him, I think he did phenomenal in The Rise of Skywalker. The bottom line is that it was no secret you had to walk a tightrope.
Negative things get more views and likes. Saying you hate something is going to get you more views and likes. I think fans have always been toxic. Always. Fans are fans. It's just now that everybody has a megaphone. I mean, it's like every moron has a YouTube channel.